Our other top story tonight, 1 week after that triple shooting that left a 4-year-old girl dead, we're learning what happened in the moments leading up to the gunfire.
The girl's mother and her 2-year-old sister were left with life-threatening injuries. And the accused gunman is their father, 29-year-old Trudale Reed Jr.
News4Jax has obtained the arrest affidavit in which detectives detail what they say was captured on a doorbell ring camera. Reporter Chris Will explains seconds before shots were fired, the two little girls ran to their dad to give him a hug.
On the afternoon of June 30th, 2026, 4-year-old Harmoni Reed and her 2-year-old sister Rhythm saw their father outside their home on Traci Lynn Drive in Jacksonville. They ran out, hugged him, and went back inside. Their mother, 27-year-old Brianna Johnson, stayed near the front door with him. 19 minutes later, gunfire tore through that entrance, hitting his little daughter Harmoni, who couldn't survive the shot and was killed, while Brianna and Rhythm were critically wounded. Before we get into what happened in those 19 minutes, if you're new here, subscribe so we can uncover the details in this gruesome case together. Very little is public about Harmoni's life outside this case, and her family has asked for privacy, a request that deserves respect. What we do know is simple. She was 4 years old, at home with her mother and little sister, just at the very start of her life, before it was cut short by her very own father. The gunfire was loud enough to shake the whole neighborhood.
A lot of sadness and anger.
A shooting outside a Northside home left a 4-year-old girl dead, her mother and 2-year-old sister critically hurt. Tonight, we're hearing more from neighbors who heard the shots and ran to help.
Right now at 6, a Northside neighborhood still trying to process a tragedy that unfolded on Traci Lynn Drive. Investigators say a 4-year-old girl is dead and her mother and 2-year-old sister are in critical condition after a shooting outside their home.
We first brought you this as breaking news last night at 6. Police say the children's father is in custody and investigators believe the tragedy stemmed from a domestic dispute. News4Jax reporter Alicia Hatcher spoke with neighbors who heard the shots and rushed to help.
She came out with one of the grandkids in her hand. And I just started crying because it wasn't good. And the grandma was like in shock.
Those moments some neighbors will never forget. A 4-year-old was killed while her mom and 2-year-old sister were taken to the hospital in critical condition. JSO tracked down the kid's father and took him into custody about 20 minutes after the shooting. Police believe the shooting started after a domestic dispute. Some neighbors were just getting home from work when the chaos unfolded.
So I went to the window and I looked and I seen the guy standing there with the gun in his hand. It looked like he tried to reload, but I think he done fired all of it already. And then he shouted something, and then he went to the car and sped off down the block. So by the time I came outside, he was gone. He was driving down the block. And then I heard screaming, so I ran over there. And I saw a lady in the yard talking to a young lady that was wounded badly. Then she was like, oh my gosh, the kids. And when she opened the door, she came out with one of the grandkids in her hand. I just started crying because it wasn't good.
What went through your mind in that moment?
Shock. I was shocked. I mean, I just seen these little kids last week at the door, and I waved to them. You know, it was just unbelievable. I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
The investigation didn't stop here. We got this video from a viewer who says her road was blocked off for hours as investigators processed another scene.
My husband had kind of gotten out and talked to one of the officers initially, and he was very forthcoming with the information, and he had said that the man had killed his whole family and there had been a police chase, and that's where it had ended, right there in our neighborhood.
The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has not released the suspect's name. We requested the arrest report, and we're waiting to learn more about what led up to the shooting.
This was a quiet block that never saw violence like this. Neighbors heard the shots before they knew anything else and moved toward their windows and doors to find a family that needed help immediately. The shots came fast, one after another. For a few moments, no one on the street knew where they were coming from, whether the shooter was still nearby or how many people had been hit. One neighbor later struggled to describe what she saw without breaking down. Minutes earlier, she said, the house had looked like every other one on the block. Relatives inside heard the shots and moved toward the entrance once the gunfire stopped. They could see what had happened, They didn't yet know how the bullets had traveled from the porch into the rooms behind it. Soon after, emergency units were alerted and they filled the street to respond to both the mother and daughter who were critically injured. On the other hand, after detective arrived, the camera by the front door had watched the whole unfolded. Detectives pulled the ring footage and built a timeline that answered the one question no witness could. What had actually happened before the shooting? Trudale Reed Jr. arrived at the house at 4:37 that afternoon. His wife, Brianna, opened the door, and his beautiful daughters, Harmoni and Rhythm, ran out, hugged him, and went back inside, leaving their parents alone near the entrance. He didn't immediately enter into his apartment nor argue with his wife, at least not loudly enough to draw attention. For the next 19 minutes, Reed simply stood there with Brianna, the two of them framed in the doorway, while their daughters played somewhere behind them. No one outside that conversation knows what was said. The camera recorded movement and sound were not clear enough to make out words. Two people standing close, for far longer than any greeting should take, while nothing on the tape suggested what was about to happen. Then, at approximately 4:56, Reed reached into his clothing and pulled out a black handgun. He opened fire on her and his own two daughters, both just doorway behind her. The bullets went straight through it, into the room they'd run to be out of the way. Reed fired 15 times. Brianna went down first, hit near the porch. Her fall knocked the ring camera sideways, but the microphone kept recording, and investigators said the audio picked up more shots after she hit the ground. Inside, Brianna's brother and a teenage relative heard the gunfire from separate rooms. The teenager reached a window in time to see Reed moving toward a blue Volkswagen. By the time anyone made it to the front door, he was already leaving, and all three victims had already been hit. Reed's mother had come to the house that afternoon to pick up her son Brianna and the girls. Instead, she watched him raise the gun and shoot Brianna. As he walked past her toward the car, he said one word, "Sorry," then got in and drove away. She turned back toward the house. That's when she found Harmoni badly injured and gasping for air. She lifted her granddaughter, carried her outside, and held pressure on the wound with her hands, doing the only thing she could do until help arrived. Around them, the yard filled with panic, people shouting for help, checking on Brianna and Rhythm, glancing down the street in case Reed came back. When paramedics arrived, they found 3 patients in 3 different places. Brianna near the porch, Rhythm close to the entrance, Harmoni outside in her grandmother's arms. Officers moved to secure the ground between the yard, the doorway, and the rooms inside, while detectives began pulling witnesses aside to gather accounts they'd later weigh against the footage. For the people who lived there, none of that mattered yet. This wasn't a scene made of shell casings and evidence markers to them. It was the porch where the girls had hugged their father less than 20 minutes earlier. Then came the word no family should have to hear. Rescue workers told Reed's mother that Harmoni hadn't survived. She was 4 years old. Brianna and Rhythm were rushed to separate hospitals for emergency surgery, their conditions still unknown.
We just got the arrest report and warrant affidavit for Trudale Reed Jr. He is now charged in the triple shooting here on Traci Lynn Drive. We first brought you these images last Tuesday, an emotional scene after police say a 4-year-old was shot and killed. Her 2-year-old sister and mother left fighting for their lives after an apparent domestic dispute. By Wednesday, JSO announced Reed's arrest for murder and 2 counts of attempted murder. But many questions about what happened remain. Newly released documents show that investigators say a Ring doorbell camera captured key moments leading up to the shooting. Detectives say the video on that camera shows Reed arriving at the home where Brianna Johnson and their 2 children lived. They say the 2 children run out, hug Reed, and then go back inside. Detectives say minutes later, Reed allegedly pulls out a handgun and fires 15 rounds at Johnson and toward the open front door. Police say there were no return shots. The affidavit says investigators believe rounds went through the screen door and into the home, striking the children. According to police, several witnesses say Reed took off in a blue Volkswagen. According to those arrest documents, his mother told them that it belonged to her and that she was there to pick up Reed and the kids to go back to their house. Police eventually found Reed and tried to stop him in that car right here on Torrey Place in Valley Forge Road. Police say Reed didn't immediately pull over and they took him into custody after a short pursuit. JSO says Reed was hurt in that crash, but once released from the hospital, they took him here to be interviewed. Investigators say he told them he drank multiple pints of vodka, blacked out, didn't remember anything that happened from that day. Reed is facing second-degree murder with a weapon in the child's death and 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder with weapon connected to the mother and the surviving child. He's also charged with aggravated fleeing, shooting into an occupied home, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and grand theft auto.
While officers held the scene on Traci Lynn Drive, another team searched for the Volkswagen. Witnesses had seen Reed leave in it, and police had to assume he still had the gun. About 20 minutes later, officers found the car elsewhere in Jacksonville. Reed didn't stop when they hit their lights, and a short chase ended in a high-risk stop. Police believed they were chasing an armed suspect connected to a triple shooting. Officers took him into custody, and through the process of the car chase, he'd injured his arm during the arrest and went to a hospital before being transferred into custody. At the house, Harmoni had just been pronounced dead, and Brianna and Rhythm were being rushed into surgery. Across the city, their father was under arrest next to the car he'd used to leave them behind. Body camera footage recorded him talking during the stop. He mentioned 1 gun, 1 magazine, and 15 bullets. After he was arrested, Reed said he was drunk and had made a serious mistake. Investigators had already recovered 15 shell casings near the entrance. His numbers matched theirs before he'd even given a formal statement. At the sheriff's office, Reed said he and Brianna had been together about 7 years and described the relationship as turbulent. He said he'd had several pints of vodka and blacked out, that he couldn't remember arriving, standing outside with Brianna, firing the gun, or the chase that followed. His next memory, he said, was waking up in the hospital. The case didn't need his memory. The Ring camera placed him there, witnesses saw him there, his mother watched him fire the gun, and when detectives showed him images from the footage, which included himself, Brianna, Harmoni, and Rhythm in it, directly tying himself to the scene, even while claiming he couldn't recall being in it. Officers also recovered the gun from the Volkswagen, a black Glock Model 22, .40 caliber. Reed reportedly admitted it was his. Investigators test-fired the Glock and compared the casings to the 15 collected at the house. Firearms leave microscopic marks on every casing they fire, and examiners matched this weapon to the shooting. That confirmed what the numbers already suggested. The gun in the Volkswagen was the gun used on Traci Lynn Drive. It also created a separate legal problem. Reed had a prior felony conviction from a robbery case involving a weapon and wasn't legally allowed to own a firearm at all. His record also includes 2 prior domestic battery arrests in Duval County that never led to a conviction, part of his history, not proof of what happened this time. Police had also responded to earlier domestic calls involving Reed and Brianna, though little is public about what those involved. Hindsight can make any past conflict look like an obvious warning sign. The record doesn't tell the full story of their relationship.
Again tonight with new details in the case of the man accused of shooting his 2 children and their mother. I want to give you another look at the victims, Brianna Johnson and her 2 daughters, Rhythm and Harmoni Reed. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has confirmed that 4-year-old Harmoni was shot and killed. Now her father is facing charges. Today, 29-year-old Trudale Reed made his first court appearance.
He faces 7 charges, including second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. But court records show this was not the first time Reed had been accused of violence involving his family. News4Jax reporter Ashley French is taking a closer look at Reed's history.
Trudale Reed's criminal history dates back more than a decade, and his records obtained by News4Jax lays it all out. Those records show Reed was convicted of armed robbery in 2015 and was imprisoned until 2019. They also show 2 domestic battery arrests, one in 2022 and another just last year. Both of those domestic violence charges were later dropped. Because of that felony conviction, Reed was not legally allowed to have a gun, but investigators say Reed had a gun Tuesday when he shot and killed his 4-year-old daughter, Harmoni Reed. They also say that he critically wounded his 2-year-old child and the children's mother at this home on Traci Lynn Drive on the north side, ultimately leading to Reed's first court appearance Thursday morning, where he now faces 7 charges. Now you're probably wondering how those 2 earlier domestic battery cases were dropped. In the 2022 case, the court record shows the victim was listed as Reed's father, Trudale Reed Jr. He was accused of punching his dad during an argument, but the case was later dropped after his father wouldn't cooperate with investigators. Then, in 2025, Reed was arrested again, this time after a fight with his own brother, involving a gun that got so bad, his brother fired a warning shot. Reed was named the primary aggressor. That case was also dropped. In both cases, Reed walked away freely, but investigators say what happened Tuesday afternoon was different. A tragedy that left a 4-year-old girl dead and her mother and 2-year-old sibling critically injured.
Nothing like this has ever happened in this neighborhood, on this street, ever. And for something like this to happen, especially to a child, it's just utterly heartbreaking.
Police say the shooting started with an argument between the woman who has yet to be identified and Reed. Records also show past calls of domestic disputes involving the both of them.
Reed faces 7 criminal counts: second-degree murder with a weapon for Harmoni's death, 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder for Brianna and Rhythm, shooting into an occupied structure, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, grand theft auto for the Volkswagen, and fleeing law enforcement. At his first appearance, a judge denied bond on the murder and attempted murder charges and ordered no contact with Brianna, Rhythm, or the witnesses.
The man accused of shooting 2 of his children and their mother, leading to the death of one of his daughters, pled not guilty in court. 29-year-old Trudale Reed was arrested earlier this month and was being held at the Duval County Detention Jail without bond. Reed is facing multiple charges, including second-degree murder and 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office says Reed fired a gun during an argument, killing his 4-year-old daughter and leaving his 2-year-old daughter and the children's mother with life-threatening injuries.
Reed later pleaded not guilty, meaning the state has to prove every count in court, and the defense will get to challenge the footage, the witnesses, and the ballistics match at trial. For Harmoni's family, the fallout started long before any hearing. By the time Reed entered his plea, her name had appeared in police reports, court filings, and news coverage across Jacksonville. Yet almost everything the public knows about her comes from the final minutes of her life. She ran outside because she recognized her father, hugged him, and went back in. That's where the public record begins, not where her life began. Her family has shared little else and asked for privacy while they mourned and cared for Brianna and Rhythm. That doesn't make her any less real. She was a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter, and the people who loved her knew far more than what's written in an arrest report. Rhythm was 2 when she was shot, and Brianna was 27. Both survived and went into emergency treatment. Few details about their recovery have been made public. Their injuries became evidence in a criminal case, but their healing belongs to them. Whatever the court decides, it won't return Harmoni to the mother, sister, and relatives who knew her before her name became part of a criminal case. On the afternoon of June 30th, 2 children ran outside to welcome their father. 19 minutes later, one of them was dead. This is really tragic. If this case stayed with you, subscribe and help us uncover more tragic and gruesome cases like this that shouldn't happen in the first place. And share your responses in the comment so we can discuss further how wicked can humans be.